Welcome, this is Pastor Keith with Progressive Movement Towards Christ Church. And I'm going to give a sermon on, it's more of a rant on Breonna Taylor, her case. And if you haven't heard about it, I know I'm just speaking to people around the world, is this young lady, a black woman, was in her apartment with her boyfriend. Officers, we don't know what happened. If they did say, knock, 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 police, this is the police, or they just busted in the door. Now, her boyfriend took one shot at the police because he thought somebody was intruding, invading their house. And so the police shot back. Breonna was hit 5 times. One of the police officers were hit in the thigh, and it was a horrible incident. But the after effects of this, they were not. Only one of them was indicted of the 3 officers, and the one that actually killed Breonna wasn't indicted because I don't know. But anyway, the indictment came down. And he did receive punishment, but not for killing Breonna. He received punishment because he shot into the apartment next door where a white couple and their child lived. Now, they weren't involved, so he got punished, or he will get punished. He will go to court for that, but not for killing Breonna, not for those shots he fired into the right apartment. Now, in the aftermath, that night after the indictment came down, in Kentucky, 2 officers were shot during the protests in Louisville. Now, protests began all over the United States for Breonna. They were still going for Floyd and all the others, but Breonna is, of course, on everybody's mind since it's recent. And people, the police officers didn't die, but they were wounded, and it's hard because we're trying to stop injustice. Black Lives Matter is out there protesting because they want the police to take those bad apples off the police force. Now, I did my last one on, left and right wing people that are invading the protests, that pretend they're protesting for Floyd and Breonna and Taylor, all those out there that the police killed, unfortunately killed, that were unarmed. And we have to see what happens next, because I think that it's going to get worse. And with the right and left wing people out there shooting and disrupting the protests, they are looting. In Louisville, what happened is protests were going on, of course. Most of the cops were there. And the right-wing people were robbing the stores while the protest was going on, looting, breaking into windows. In L.A., they went on Rodeo Drive and broke into some of the high-class places. And this was seen by the press, and you know what? They were breaking the stores, taking products that were very expensive, and a car would drive up, they would load it, then they would go to the next store, yada, yada, yada. But, all this was caused because no indictment of the 3 officers happened that were charged with anything that happened to Breonna. Well, the cops busted in the door, or said, police busted in the door, and like I said, Breonna was shot 5 times. the boyfriend that shot the one bullet and caught the thigh of one of the police officers was never shot. He didn't receive. He walked out there with not a bullet in him, and he was the one that shot the gun, saying that they didn't say they were police, so he thought they were intruders. So he shot off one shot. I just don't understand what's going on here because the police, of course, identify the right and the left wing people as Black Lives Matter. And we have to understand they dress differently. They're in all black. Most of them are in all black. And of course, donning the scars for their faces, hat, whatever they need to, to hide their identity. And things happen away from the protests, but they still say and charge Black Lives Matter people for doing this. They did make 100 arrests in Louisville and in Los Angeles. They made quite a few arrests. It's just, I don't understand. Even in Atlanta, there's protests because of Rashawn Brooks, because he was drunk at a Wendy's, okay? He was sitting in his car, and the cops had to go over there and bother him. And he was just sitting there trying, I don't know what he was doing sitting there, but they talked to him for over 40 minutes before the clash happened, and they shot him in the back when he was running away. A lot of states have laws against this, laws against officers shooting people in the back as they're running away, because they're not a threat to the officers. You cannot shoot an officer if you're running away. And he didn't have a gun. He stole one of the policeman's tasers and shot it when he was 20 so feet from the officer, and the officer shot him, even knowing that the taser had no chance of reaching him or his partner, but they still shot and killed him. It's amazing what goes on in these protests and how police are actually allowing and saying that the Black Lives Matter protesters are in fact everyone that's involved, even the left and right protesters. Come on. I know Black Lives Protest is a multicolored protest, but you can tell these right and left wing people, most of the right wing people carry guns. In Louisville last night, I saw quite a few left wing people, presumably, having guns just like the right-wing people. And when you get the right and the left together, of course there's going to be fighting and shooting, and they're all working to be identified as Black Lives Matter protesters instead of their true identities. Matter of fact, a white right wing was at a protest. He shot one black man and killed him, I believe, and two others he was shooting at. And they didn't arrest him because he cried self-defense. And when all the evidence came in, the videos from phones, yada yada, and you know what happened? They filed an arrest warrant for him, naturally. But guess what? He was gone. He was gone. When Breonna Taylor got shot, they arrested the boyfriend, charged him right away, and put him in jail. But it took over 6 months to indict one of the 3 police officers. They said they didn't want to move fast. They wanted to collect all the evidence. Well, they came up with this in a week. They didn't have all the witness reports. Because when it happened and the police came out saying that they knocked and said they were police, well, 11 out of 12 people said they didn't yell police and knock on the door. Only one said they did, but they took the one versus the 11, and the police saying they did, knock and yell police. They were safe now, protected, just like all police officers who do things that are illegal, beat people up, kill people that don't have guns. Just like the young boy who was just walking. Well, no, this was another site. Another guy just was doing nothing. It was a call that this guy was having a mental issue by one of the family members, and the police show up. Supposedly, to help this man down, to convince him to stop yelling and screaming. And guess what? He spit at one of the officers. So they said because of COVID-19, they put a hood over him, dropped him on the ground, and stood there with their knee on his neck. There were at least 5 officers holding him down. And now this was a call for help. Call for help. He died a week later from asphyxiation. A call for help led this man to die. God doesn't want any of this. A protest is not against the law, but a violent protest is. And God doesn't want this. That's why he sent the Israelites away and gave them their own land, because he didn't want them to be ruled and governed by people that hated him. They were below. They weren't even even people, even humans. Lower than humans, lower than them. That's why God let them go. But these incidents all over the country are happening daily. You would think after one police officer got in trouble, this would stop. But it doesn't. Prejudice, systemic racism is in the police department. The right and the left wing people are out there causing trouble. But the people that are getting arrested by the police are those protesters that are not rioting and are not in the right and the left. They may have got some right and left, of course. Like when those 2 police officers got shot, they actually arrested the gunman. And he was black. But he was a left-wing individual. He was not a Black Lives Matter protesters. He was left wing. And these people that are left and right wing are dangerous. That's why the Lord took them out of Egypt. Because the Israelites were being killed and made to live in poverty by the Egyptians, by the Gentiles. And I see the same thing happening here. The Gentiles, let's call it Gentiles, the white race, and minorities, the Israelites, the Jews. And oppression is here. Destruction is here. And they do anything to disrupt the Black Lives Matter. The blacks, the Hispanics, the Asians. Not all policemen are bad, but there are some bad apples. Matter of fact, a police officer got arrested. He actually shot somebody at a protest. And he was an ex-military and police officer. I always said, and I always will say, that the world's getting dark, and we have to do something about it soon. And Breonna Taylor's case was just another case against blacks in America. And of course, the political heads say that the officer did a good job. He was doing his job. The officers did a good job of doing their job. But they never say anything about the blacks that are getting killed. They said that, well, that doesn't happen very often. Well, there was 250 deaths last year that were mysterious. Mysterious. I don't know. I can talk about this all day, but I'm running out of time. So I just want to say, be peaceful. If you want to protest, protest from the house. Protest with words. Protest with your computer. Use your fingers on that keyboard. Don't go out with a gun and try to be a hero, because it doesn't matter if you live or die to the police. So just be responsible. This is Pastor Keith with Progressive Movement Towards Christ. You can hear all my sermons and rants on Progressive Movement Towards Christ Church on any podcast venue you listen to. In God's name.